The if function. The if function helps to determine what will be displayed to those who view your worksheets in Excel. Because of its purpose, it's one of the most important functions you will learn. If functions can be used to add comments to your data. They can also be used to hide errors in calculations. In this lesson, we'll learn about the if function, the if NA and if error functions, nesting if functions, the and, or, and not operators, and displaying formulas from one cell in another. The syntax for the if function is equals if. This lets Excel know that it's an if function. Then we begin the formula that Excel will use to produce the results we want. We start with the opening bracket. Next, we add the evaluation criteria. For example, is 6 greater than 3? The evaluation criteria asks a question. The question has two outcomes. If the answer or outcome is correct, such as yes, 6 is greater than 3, then the answer is true. If not, it's false. If it's true, we put what happens when the answer is true. If it's false, we put what happens when the answer is false. In this worksheet here, we have a list of employees, followed by the rating they received as part of their annual review. Now we want to add another column called comments. In this column, we want to add comments about the scores. This way, when a manager looks at the worksheet, he or she doesn't need to worry themselves with the actual rating and what that means. They can simply look in the comments. To add a comment based on the rating, we're going to use the if function. First of all, we want to have a look at the employee's rating and see if it's less than 50. Now we enter what happens. If it's correct that the employee's rating is less than 50, the comment should be, needs significant improvement. However, if it's false and the rating is not less than 50, the comment should be needs improvement. Notice that we use quotation marks to enter the comments into the formula. Now we add the end bracket and press enter. Since this contains a formula where all the cell references are relative, you can use the handle in the lower right hand corner of the cell and drag it down to complete the comments for the other employees. You can also use the if function to hide Excel error messages. Let's show you what we mean by having a look at these values here. Let's put in a formula where we divide 85 by 5. It shows us this answer here. However, what happens if we remove the value from this cell here? You get this divided by 0 error. We can use the if function to hide this error message. To do this, let's write this formula here. Let's translate what this says. If B9 equals 0, enter 2 dashes into the cell where we have the formula. If it doesn't equal 0, then go ahead and do A9 divided by B9. If we place the number 5 back into this cell, we can see that the answer is showing here. You should note that all of the if functions appear in the Formulas tab under the Logical section. From there, you can access the Function Arguments dialog box. In an earlier lesson, when we talked about data lookups, we used isNA to enter criteria. We said that if the value returned was isNA, then Excel gave instructions on what to do. The ifNA function tells Excel what to do if an NA error is produced, whereas the isNA tells Excel what to do if the return value is NA. The NA error appears in a cell when a value is not available to a formula. If in this worksheet here we wanted to find the mode, we would enter the mode formula and then select the range of cells that we wanted. When we push enter, the result is displayed. However, if we went back and changed the second instance of the number 4 to a number 6, we would see an NA error because the value needed is not available to determine the mode. To avoid NA values from appearing, we could use the new ifNA function. It would be entered like this. ifNA, then open brackets, we leave our mode there, then we have a comma, and then 2 dashes. This means that instead of showing the NA value, it shows 2 dashes. All of the if functions appear under the Formulas tab and by clicking on the Logical button. The easiest way to use the if-NA function is to click on the logical button and then select if-NA. This is the dialog box for the if-NA function. The if-error function can be used as a general cover-all for any errors that might appear in your data. You can use it to specify what will be entered if any error occurs in the calculation of a formula. It is written the same way as an if function. However, instead of writing if, you would write if-error. You can access the dialog box for if-error by going to the logical button under the Formulas tab. Just as with VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs, you can nest an if statement within another if statement. In this worksheet, we have a list of friends along with their ages. We could create a simple if formula to get the comments. If their age is over 50, we enter getting older. Otherwise, we enter still young. If we nest an if statement within the current if statement, we would keep the evaluation criteria, but we would replace one of the outcomes with our new if statement. However, keep in mind, when you nest an if statement, you do not need another equal sign. We have our original if statement intact. We've highlighted the first part of it here. Now let's add another if statement in the true statement here. Let's delete this text and type if the age is greater than 70. We type in old, otherwise getting older. Close the quotes and the brackets. The nested if statement tells Excel that if the age is greater than 70, enter the comment old. If it's not, enter getting older. Let's copy this formula to the rest of the cells. Now let's break this down into easy to understand terms. When you enter the formula with a nested if statement, Excel reads the first if statement. It looks at your criteria and then the outcomes for the criteria. If the outcome for the first if statement is true, so if B2 is greater than 50, Excel is then going to perform another if statement to determine what appears in the comments. It will put old if the age is greater than 70. It will put getting older if it's not greater than 70. It's important to remember that these two outcomes both serve as your true outcome for the first if condition here. Now if your original if statement returns a false outcome, then Excel will enter still young. A nested if statement gives you a way to enter more than one response for an outcome. We use a nested if statement for the true outcome. However, you can also use a nested if statement for a false outcome. If the nested if statements are still confusing to you, remember it this way. The nested if statement provides two additional outcomes for either true or false outcome of your original if statement. You can use the AND operator within an if statement if you have more than one criteria that needs to be true. Using the AND operator can sometimes be easier than writing multiple nested if statements. Take a look at this worksheet here. In it, we have a list of students and their grades for the 4 grading periods. Each student must have earned greater than 80% in each quarter in order to receive an award. We'll use the AND operator to set this as criteria. Have a look at this formula here. Let's enter a formula into this cell. Now let's examine it. We start out by examining the if statement, then the open bracket. Next we write the AND for the AND operator. The criteria then is placed within brackets. Notice that we have 4 sets of criteria. The criteria is that each quarter's grade must be greater than 80%. Also notice for this to work, the percentages need to be converted to decimals because 80% is actually 0.8. After you've entered the criteria in brackets, you can enter your true and false values. We want the cell to display yes if the criteria is met. We want it to display no if it's not met. We then type in an end bracket to close the if statement. As you can see, Student Mary had one grade that was 80%. All of the grades had to be above 80 to meet our criteria, so a no was returned. You can drag the handle in the cell down to complete the worksheet for all students. The OR operator works in the same way as the AND, except it says if one of the criteria is listed as true, then the outcome is true for what is displayed. Let's have a look at our worksheet. This time, we want to say if the grade for Q1, Q2, Q3 or Q4 is greater than 90%, then the student gets the award. You enter it in the same way as you did with the if statement and the AND operator, except you type OR instead of AND. Let's change all of these to 0.9 because our rule is if it's greater than 90%. You can now drag this formula down to complete the worksheet. Now let's make it a little bit more complicated. Now we want to say that in order to get the award, the average of all 4 quarters must be greater than 90%, or at least one of the quarters must be greater than 95%. In other words, the average of the quarters must be greater than 90%, or Q1, Q2, Q3 or Q4 must be higher than 95%. This is the perfect time for you to test your ability writing formulas by entering the formula into the cell. The NOT operator is used in conjunction with the AND and OR operator. The best way to explain how the NOT operator works is to show you the NOT operator in action. Working with our students and grades again, we want to determine if the grades have improved each quarter. To do that, we're going to use the if statement with the AND operator since we're using multiple criteria. We'll use the NOT operator to make sure Q1 is not higher than Q2. Q2 must be greater than Q1. In addition, Q3 must be greater than Q2, and Q4 must be greater than Q3. Let's write this formula here. We start with the if, and then the AND condition. And we put in our first condition, and we go not the first condition. After we have all of our not statements, we put another closing bracket on the end. Then we add a comma and type in yes, then another comma and type in no. We can see that there is not steady improvement for this person. Remember, the not operator is used within and if operations. You must use the not operator for each piece of criteria. You cannot type in the not operator once, then use it for all criteria. Starting with Excel 2013, you can display the formula from one cell in another. In our worksheet so far, we could view the formula in a cell by double-clicking on the cell. However, once we pressed enter or tabbed out of the cell, we couldn't see the formula unless we looked in the formula bar. To display a formula from one cell into another cell, go to the cell where you want the formula to appear. You'll use the formula text function. Type the equal sign followed by formula text. Once we have the open bracket, click on another cell that contains the formula you want to display. And then add the closing bracket and press enter. You'll then see the formula from that cell.